Wow, that looks almost complete. Time to see how we got to that point. So, I am still in progress of modifying this Sanctum Sanctorum alt build designed by rebelnili into a corner building. In the previous videos, I have already built first and second floors. Now this wall is sort of a rough sketch at this point, but the front facade is pretty much complete, while the other two walls are just placeholders at this point. The aim is to place this building next to the assembly square, and therefore there is a copy of the assembly square tower at that corner. But of course, both the original alt build of this model and the assembly square do have a third floor in them, so that's why we need to continue this build. This is how the original third floor looks on top of the current building. The section on the left needs to be a lot smaller, and we need to add 5 studs of depth here. And of course, we need to also complete the assembly square tower and place it here and somehow connect it to the rest of the building. And now that the plan was complete, it was time to put the human helpers to work. The first step was to remove this roof section. Now the remaining third floor already looked much better. Next, there was a need to move these floor plates 1 stud forwards, like this. With that, we can place this architectural feature on top of the floor plates. Originally, that feature was not on top of the floor plates, but rather in front of them, and it was connected by placing a 2 white plate below. Usually, that is not a problem. Normally, the floor plates of the modular buildings are built out of 2 plate layers on top of each other. But if the tile layer of the previous floor is not even, then you have to take it into account when you design the bottom plate layer. For example, the gap in plate work here is there because there is a raised tile section in the previous floor. And we ended up with a very similar situation in the floor above. The easiest way to fit the brackets for the snot work of the front facade was to have this front tile section 1 plate higher. And that meant that the bottom of the third floor had to look like this. There was no room for 2 white plates there at the front. Next, it was time to expand the floor size. I started that by testing some bigger plates on top of the existing plates in order to find the correct layout. I also realized that 6 white light gray plates were a perfect fit for this balcony or rooftop terrace. Next, it was time to add in this tower section that we had built previously. And after that, it was time to complete the floor plates. As you can see, there were some gaps there at the back. And after a couple of iterations, the floor plates were complete. Now I didn't have enough rectangular plates to complete the floor, so I used some wedge plates here instead. And of course, the next step were the roof plates and the top of the tower. The plate work is complete here, and now I just need to transfer all these details from the previous version to the new version. And now those details are in. I also moved the original white roof tiles of the assembly square 6 studs to the left. The white line in the middle of the roof just didn't work. And that was the only modification that I did for the original assembly square set. But that is pretty easy modification to revert back to if there ever is a need for that. I can just grab those tiles from the roof of the Grand Townhouse and put them back to the assembly square. Now at this point, all the street-facing walls in all 3 floors were pretty much complete. And that was always the priority for me. But now I could use my remaining bricks to build the remaining walls. Here you can see the 2 remaining second floor walls pretty much complete. Those 2 black bricks are bigger bricks that I used to build the stairs. And eventually, those will be replaced with light gray bricks. And here is the 3rd floor, pretty much the same, but with more light gray. These 2 panels will be replaced by bookcases that will be built into the wall. But that is something that I plan to do later on. I also added a 1x1 pillar under that corner of the roof section. Now the Lego build didn't need that support, but somehow I felt that the real-world architecture would benefit from that pillar. Now at this point, I decided that I was not going to plan any interior details to this room. The minimum requirement would be a bed for the teen, and I could easily see that that would not be a problem. If I can get more details in when I get to this point of the build, it's just a bonus. I also built some placeholder walls for the 1st floor, but these will be replaced. I'm thinking that the color will be light gray with some dark gray mixed in. And of course, this will need interior walls as well. Now the random colors of those 1st floor walls were a clear sign that I am running out of suitable parts. And that is true, I don't currently have enough parts to complete this build. But I still wanted to do some test builds with one area. I wanted to design some sort of a railing for the rooftop terrace. I did some tests with this initial design, but I didn't think that it worked that well. Instead, I came up with this black metal railing. Now I had to extend the rooftop terrace with one stud so that the railing wouldn't clash with the tower window. Next, I started to think that perhaps these pillars on the wall would need to support that extended rooftop terrace a bit. So instead of just a tile layer on top of these plates, perhaps I could modify the top sections a bit. And I think that these slope pieces and rail pieces do the job just nicely. I have to admit that I didn't have those black rail pieces in my inventory just lying around. I had to temporarily steal those from my extended boutique hotel. But in a way, that was not a problem. I had already stolen quite a lot of furniture pieces to make some tests with this build. But at least now I know that the design is going to work, and I also know how many pieces I need to order. Before it was time to wrap this build up for the time being, I still managed to find some parts to do some minor improvements. Like here, I managed to find enough tiles to complete that pattern below the window. But of course I need to order a whole lot more in order to complete this side. I also managed to find a bit more tiles for the street, but once again I need to order more to complete the tiling. And finally, I wasn't happy with the small wall section that connects the chimney and the tower. Originally I had used the chimney colors in the wall section, and it was slightly in a different spot, but now I am happier with this end result. And that was pretty much all I could do at this point. Sure, I could probably find some individual parts that I could add to this build, but I knew that in order to finish the street-facing walls, that are the priority at this point, I would need quite a lot of extra parts. But at least now I have a pretty clear idea what kind of extra parts I will need and how many. But I don't think that I'm gonna order those right away, so there will be quite a long pause in this project. But I'll promise that I will eventually get back to this. But before wrapping things up, let's take a final status check of the progress so far. Here is the first floor, and the front facade is pretty much complete. Though I want to replace these windows on the left-hand side to the same windows as we have on the right-hand side, and also use the slot-mounted tiles on the walls too. This wall is sort of a sketch of the colors that will be present there, but the individual parts will change. And this wall is a very rough sketch, as is this wall too. Most of the interior details are missing, like the fireplace in that corner, and eventually a dining room table will go to this corner. There is a sketch of stairs there and some of the furniture pieces that will go next to those, and this section will be separated into a small business. The second floor is quite complete at this point, though we need to add some tiles to these pillars and some additional parts for the tower section that matches the assembly square. The other walls are almost complete. There is just a couple of mismatched pieces there. The brick layout of the interior walls is complete, though it needs some replacement parts still. That colorful section represents the chimney, and all the furniture pieces in the rooms are pretty much borrowed from the boutique hotel and some other sets. So I need to order similar parts for all of those furniture pieces. In the third floor, I need to order all those railing pieces because those are stolen from the boutique hotel. And once again, the tower section needs some additional parts before it matches the one in the assembly square. And I sort of skipped designing the interior for this floor, but I don't think that that will be a problem. But of course, we will need some additional parts for all that too. This roof section is complete at this point. It just looks a bit weird on its own. And finally, here you can see all the floors stacked on top of each other. Even though there is quite a bit of work until this building is complete, I think that we can already see the end result at this point. And I think that this building is different enough from the Sanctum Sanctorum. Even though both are tall corner buildings, this looks completely different. Mostly thanks to rebelnili's facade design. And of course, this building was designed to go next to the assembly square. And here you can see how that placement looks. I think that these two buildings will complement each other just perfectly. I think that even the backsides work quite well, though there could have been more space around those assembly square stairs. But that would have meant that the building would have been smaller in size. So I think that I prefer it this way. And now that the build was complete at this point, it was time to return all those borrowed furniture pieces back to their original buildings. Most of those came from my extended boutique hotel. And after all that, it was finally time to place the Grand Townhouse back to the IKEA Galaxy shelf and clean the build table so that we could get our kitchen table back. This has been quite a big project and it has already taken quite a while, so perhaps it is time to concentrate on something smaller. One such project could be modifying this Hogwarts Castle and Ground set so that it splits into two parts, because currently the hinges and the door itself are making it quite difficult to get this set out of this glass cabinet. So we will do that modification in the next video. If you want to get the notification as soon as that video is up, you should consider hitting that subscribe button down there. I will upload the next video ASAP, but remember, when a Sloth says that, it means as slowly as possible. Bye bye.